Greetings, guys and ghouls, and welcome back to the podcast where we talk about all things spooky, Dial H for horror.
I am your ghostess with the mostest, Shay.
And I am your favorite final girl, Gina.
All right. Well, welcome back, guys. We have been gone for a minute.
Sorry.
We had a lot of stuff has happened in the last 2 weeks. A lot of stuff has happened.
You're in Florida.
I'm in Florida. I am here. I am here. I'm like All Might. I'm like, I am here.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, no, we had to do a mad dash to get me down here to Florida. Gina came in clutch, so that was fun. Long weekend, and then it was Mother's Day, so we were tired.
Yeah, very tired.
Had to spend time with our mamas.
Mm-hmm.
So then we decided we were just going to do a double feature, kind of. If you're listening to this on Spotify, you're going to hear the whole episode in one, just because it's, something you can listen to all at once. But if you're watching this on YouTube, you're going to see 2 separate videos this week. So, when unfortunately we're not doing any of the news or the fun stuff this week, we'll get back to that next week, just because we're doing 2 movies in one sitting. So we didn't want to make it like a 4-hour episode.
And what are 2 movies to do a double feature with, where we've got 2 sides of the spectrum today? 2
very big tonal shifts. Like, you've got one over here and one over there. So, we're going to do Saint Maud first, because that's the one we were supposed to do for Mother's Day weekend, and we didn't get around to it. So we're going to do the movie that I picked. And then
we're moving on to the movie I picked, which is...
Well, you got to get glasses.
Terrifier. I just have to remember it's also a podcast, so people can't see me put on the sunglasses.
Yes, for those of you listening, she's wearing the sunglasses that were in Terrifier too. Yeah. So, all right. So let's get into our first half, which is our recap of Saint Maud. So before we get started with our review of Saint Maud, I just want to note that anything we talk about in this episode is not us poking fun at or denigrating religion. We are 100% in support of believing whatever you want and practicing however you want, as long as you're not hurting yourself or others. However, we are going to have to talk about religion in this review. It's unavoidable because that's what this movie is about. If this is something that you're not comfortable with, feel free to skip this episode altogether. Go on and watch the Terrifier episode, and we'll be back. We'll be back with different video episode next week. Yeah. And so right now we're going to give you a few seconds to just make your decision. We're going to pause before we continue on with our review. Okay, so before we get started, what do you think about like religious themed horror movies?
It for a long time wasn't my cup of tea, but I will have to say recently, with watching Saint Maud for the sake of this podcast, and then I also watched the Pope's Exorcist recently. I actually really enjoyed both movies a lot.
Okay.
And I don't know, I am starting to become more comfortable with it. I think what stopped me before from really liking religious themed horror movies was not having a full sense of understanding religion. And gotcha. So not maybe always understanding like how certain things work. Like, the priests are the ones who do the exorcism, things like that. Like just the very basic things I didn't have even a basic understanding of before.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's really good. Really good way to look at it, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm iffy about religious themed movies. Like I'm kind of over the demonic possession movies as a whole, because I feel like there's just so many of them, and all of them want to be the Exorcist, and none of them are. They just all keep trying to do the same thing, where it's like a person with their head spinning around and climbing on the ceiling and talking in a deep voice and speaking Latin, and it's like, how many times can you do this? And it's just like, I liked this one, Saint Maud, because it was different. We'll talk about it more when we get into it, but when I was doing research for this, there was a lot of people that had issues with certain things, certain subjects, and it wasn't necessarily about the religion itself. It was more about mental health, but we'll get into it. Okay. But I liked this one because it wasn't like a typical, movie where we're centered on religion, because instead of it being centered on a person getting possessed and like, let's expel the demon, it was a woman who's just trying to cope with something, and then trying to also like save people, and that desperation of like, I want to get you over to our side. And it was interesting to see a horror movie, a religious horror movie, done from that point of view, rather than like the demons are bad, let's just hit them with like some stuff and like, call some holy water and say some words, read the Bible and put a cross on them.
Correct.
And, it was interested to see like,
her personal experience with it, and kind of seeing how that comes from within.
Her connection to that. So I thought that was interesting compared to like other religious horror movies. But sometimes I get a little bit I get a little bit oversaturated. Like I'll see a trailer for a movie and I'm like, oh, it's demons again, cool. Gonna have them crawl on the ceiling. Yep, there they go. They're on the ceiling. There's head spinning around. Oh, they're screaming in a demonic voice. Same old, same old. I'm no longer scared of this stuff. You pretty much desensitized me. Thanks. But I know some of them can be good. Like I'm a huge fan of The Conjuring. I love the first Conjuring movie. I think it's one of James Wan's best. I like Insidious. Insidious isn't really a religious movie, but it kind of is.
It's like teeters.
It teeters on it. It teeters on it. But and then I did think the original Exorcist was terrifying when I first watched it. So definitely one of those.
It did a good job. That's definitely like just a really good horror movie altogether.
I'm interested in seeing what they're going to do with this remake. I'm like, how are you going to capture that again?
I'm so ready for it, especially since I've been getting into religious horror more.
We'll see. All right. So Saint Maud was first released at the Toronto International Film Festival on September 8th, 2019, but then saw a wide release in the UK on October 9th, 2020. The movie has received critical acclaim, and it's no surprise since it's another horror darling from the deranged studio that is A24. It was written and directed by Rose Glass, and fun fact, this is her directorial debut.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It stars Morfydd Clark, who plays Galadriel in the Rings of Power series on Amazon as the titular Maud. So this movie opens with Maud. It opens with a body on I don't know what you call it, like a table, like an operating table. I think I wasn't sure if it was like a slab. I think it was an operating table.
It was an operating table.
And you see there's blood and everything like that and stripping. And then you see Maud crouched in the corner and looks like she's in like nurse garb and stuff like that. Like it's like she's in scrubs. And she's sort of crouched over. She's got blood on her hands. She's like low-key kind of panicked. And she looks up at the ceiling and she sees something crawling on the ceiling. And then it's like open credits. It goes to the opening credits. And then the next part where we catch up to Maud, she is getting prepared to go to a new job. Now she's going to be a live-in nurse. So she's going to be taking care of somebody in like a hospice and stuff like, well, not hospice, but in their house that's like pretty much like on their way out. We hear a voiceover of her where she's speaking like to God essentially and saying, that she started her period and like all this other stuff. And like, she's sort of having just like a conversation as she's packing and she's getting ready to go to her new job. When she gets there, the nurse that's there is like, yeah, this one, she's kind of a mess. Like, I don't know. She calls her a different word, but I'm not going to say it, because we're on YouTube and our families listen to this, but she calls her a different word that's a little bit more vulgar. And I was like, oh, okay, we started with that. Okay. We're going right out.
I was really shook when I heard it. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, she went straight in for it. She was like, the nurse basically tells her like, she's a tough one. This one's a tough one. And Maud is like, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
Maud goes in and this is where we meet Amanda Cole, who is dying of cancer. And Amanda Cole is actually American. I forgot to mention that this movie takes place in the UK, I think in Wales. Everybody else is like British or Welsh. And then you have Amanda Cole, who is an American woman. She was a dancer. She was like this big deal and like had this big, long, illustrious life. But now she is on the last leg. She has pretty aggressive form of cancer. And when Maud and Amanda meet, it's sort of like cold. Amanda's like, get me this, get me that.
Yeah.
Do this, do that. And Maud's kind of like,
a lot.
She smokes a lot. Yeah. She's still drinking a lot of alcohol.
Yeah.
Like she's still like, chugging away at that alcohol. So basically, Maud is trying to connect with her because Maud is, that type of person. She's trying to like build a friendship, but Amanda's just like shutting the door on her.
Yeah.
towards the end of that interaction, Amanda lets Maud know that she has a friend coming over, and it's this guy that's coming over. And so Maud decides, well, since she has somebody here, I'm going to go out and like walk around in the city.
Mm-hmm.
So she goes and she starts walking around. She sees a homeless guy. She gives him some money. She tells him, like, you know, may God bless you and all this stuff. And then
she goes to the diner, right?
She goes to the diner, yeah. And she kind of has like an inner monologue where it's still implied she's talking to God, where she's saying, like, you know, she doesn't understand why someone would want to come to this place, meaning Amanda. Like, why would you want to leave America and come to this place? Because there's nothing here, you know, and you're looking at all the people around, and, you know, they kind of paint them in a gross light, like the way they're eating and stuff like that.
Exactly. Yeah, they kind of, it was reminding me of Spirited Away when they did the scene where the people turning into pigs while they were eating. Yeah. It was kind of that
like,
thing.
It was kind of like that vibe. It's like they don't really change, but it was like, it was definitely highlighting the grosser habits of people. Like, I think to sort of show you how Maud viewed those people, how Maud views others, is like, oh, all these people are disgusting. Like, look at the way they're eating, look at the way they're carrying themselves. Like, they're disgusting compared to me, you know, in this way.
Yeah, it very much gives you that sense of like when you're going out and doing something on your own. And not to say that we're all judgy people when we go out and do something on our own, but like we're seeing it through her point of view. And like, I don't know, when she stepped out and she was walking around town, I got that same feeling of like when I go out and get groceries and stuff and I have like my earplugs in, or like I'm listening to music and I'm like doing my own thing, and you feel very alone when there's a lot of people around you.
Yeah.
But you also feel like a sense of safeness because you're in your head. But in her case, she's not looking inward as much as she's looking outward.
Yeah. And I think it's like, it's normal to sort of assess the people that you're around. Like, there's times when I'll look around and I'm just like assessing people, and I'm just like,
we all people watch.
Yeah. I was like, oh, look at this people. They're over there look like they're having a nice conversation, or, you know, or my favorite is when I'm at the grocery store and people are walking really slow and I'm like, why are you walking so slow? Like, you're strolling like you're like walking in the park. You're at the grocery store. Like, go get your stuff and leave. Why are you just strolling? Like, it's such a nice day. That's usually what's going through my head when I'm at the grocery store.
Yeah, I mean, I usually see some crazy stuff happening.
Sometimes you see some crazy stuff happening at the grocery store, especially if you go to Walmart. All right. So Maud gets a call from Amanda's friend to come back and tend to her. When she returns, she finds Amanda drunk and disorderly, throwing glasses at the guy, upset. He leaves while Maud quickly gets to work taking care of Amanda, who is a drunken mess. During this night, Amanda reveals to Maud how scared she is of dying because she's scared that there's nothing after death. Maud takes this as an opening and starts the very next day to work on saving Amanda's soul from damnation. So, we gotta talk about the praying.
Let's talk about it.
Right after Amanda... I thought this was a very nice moment too, like before we get to the praying, you know, you see Amanda really just like down bad at this point in time in the story. She's hanging out with this guy that sexualized her. And it's still kind of, in a way, you can tell sexualizing her, even though the woman is like on her deathbed, essentially. Like, she can't move. She's like laying on the couch. She can't walk. You know, she can't walk. She has a wig on because she's bald now, you know, and he's still kind of like trying to get it in. And she's like, bro, like, I am dying. Leave me alone.
These are my final days, and I don't want to spend them with you like this.
Exactly. And that's why she's upset and she's throwing stuff. Then she gets sick and Maud is cleaning up after her. And like when she sort of tells her that, like, it was kind of sad. Like, you know, she's like, you know, saying like, oh, I'm like, you know, I try to be strong, but like, I'm really scared there's nothing after this. Like, you know, I'm so close to the end. I'm scared there's nothing after this. And it's something that I think a lot of people who have, like, obviously I've never been in that situation personally, but a lot of people who have been in those situations where they've had a debilitating disease and, you know, are told maybe they're not going to make it. Maybe they're lucky enough to still be with us today.
Yeah.
I feel like that's how a lot of people like can feel. It's like, I don't know, like, I'm scared. I don't know what's coming next, you know? So it was a nice moment. And then Maud just takes that as, oh, the door is open. I am running through it as fast as possible.
Yes.
So she starts praying. And here's the thing. Before that, after Amanda divulges that with Maud starts to walk up the stairs and just basically has this very explicit, like, I guess it's like the Holy Ghost is filling her.
Yeah. Yeah. She's being filled with
joy,
and I think more like emotion just in general.
In general, like she just starts like rolling around on the floor and like moaning. Which was really interesting. And I know that there's people that do that. I mean, I think they call that, oh my gosh, I've watched so many religious documentaries. I should know what it is. I think it's like charismatic prayer.
Okay.
I think that's what it's called.
Okay.
Where it's like when people get really into their prayer and they like lay on the ground and they like shake and they're all like, oh, hallelujah. Like it's like that, you know? So I think that's kind of what she was doing, but it almost was sexual.
Yeah, that was the part where I was wondering, and that was more from like a cinematography and a director standpoint. Like, is the scene meant to be, am I supposed to feel this way about the scene where I think she's,
feeling a little bit too happy about that prayer?
Yeah.
Which it kind of, I think it is, because when it gets to the scenes like the montage where Maud is trying to save Amanda's soul.
Yes.
Her and Amanda are reading the Bible, and then they start to do the same thing. Both of them, they're moaning, they're laying on the couch, and they're thrashing about. And I'm like, it kind of does feel like it's meant to be like sexualized a little bit.
A bit,
in a way. And it's like almost showing that this is just such a joyous experience for Maud that she feels like the most pleasure in her life. Like, maybe not sexually, obviously, but like,
correct.
It's just so much joy. It's like the most pleasure she's ever felt. So that was but it was very interesting because like I was watching it and I'm like, from the standpoint of not really being involved in religion personally, like in that way, being like, that is wild that y'all are like rolling around on the couch. like, I mean, I guess good for you. Like, that's how you want to worship. You're not hurting anybody. Go ahead. Like, but at the same time, I was like,
I guess I kind of viewed it like when they say the I've heard people say those things where it's like you give your body away to God for a moment, or you give your body away to, whatever it is that you're praying to or praising. And you're being just filled with an energy. A lot of times they say, like, imagine a light, and then that light fills your body and you're filled with an overcoming euphoria. And I was thinking that's probably what we're seeing from the outside, which I've never watched a person experience that before.
Yeah.
So I guess in a way, like, sure, it could come off sexual. And it was confusing for me to watch, which I knew I would have moments like that watching a religious horror movie, because again, I struggle sometimes with understanding a lot of what's going on. But, hey,
I mean, they're not hurting anybody.
They're not hurting anybody. Exactly.
It's like there's people out there that's how they worship, and that's good for them.
Good for
that's
them.
What I look at it.
Hey, listen, if I could enjoy myself that much,
it's like, I mean, I can say, like, within my personal religious beliefs, I've had those moments of euphoria, like during certain rituals and stuff like that. I didn't necessarily express it in that way, but I think it's different for everybody. But like, different. I've had those moments, so I understood it, but at the same time, I was like, that's sus. At the same time, I was like, that's sus. It just felt like you said, like, from a directorial standpoint, that's what they were getting at.
Right.
That's what they were getting at.
That's what made me concerned.
And maybe my mind's just in the gutter.
It could be that too, but I don't know. When I see a woman moving around like that,
I'm just like.
Most other times when directors have women do that, it's something else
going on. So during this montage, you see, like, aside from just that, you also see, like, Maud, like, helping Amanda with, like, yoga and things like that, which was also very interesting because they kind of, like, made it seem like Amanda was flirting with her.
Yes.
Like, the way that they were talking, I was like, yeah, this is very, like, sexually charged, like the way they were talking.
I'm really happy you're saying all these things because I thought I was just watching the movie wrong.
No, I felt the same way, and I'm not sure if that was intentional. I mean, I felt like it was
happy I'm not alone.
I felt like it was intentional. I was like, is Amanda hitting on her? And then, like, later on, you kind of understand a little bit more. But, also, Maud throws away all of Amanda's liquor because she's like, she doesn't need it anymore. Like, she's gone to God, so she's good. I'm just going to pour it all out, which I was crying about because I was like, you could have just not done that. You could have just, like, boxed it up and, like, given it to somebody else. Like, I understand probably from your point of view, you don't want to give it to anybody, but at the same time, I'm like, that's so much money you just threw down the drain.
Yeah.
So much money you just threw down the drain.
I was just thinking, like, baby girl, that's not your decision to make.
Exactly.
That's Amanda's decision to make. Like, you can't just go ahead and start. You're the nurse.
You're the nurse.
First and foremost, you were the nurse.
I mean, realistically, from a medical standpoint, yeah, she probably shouldn't be drinking like that while she's like on, taking all these treatments and stuff like that. You
can't be throwing people's stuff away either.
Yeah, exactly. Like you don't live here. Amanda also gives Maud a book, and in the book she writes her a note, and she calls Maud her savior.
Yes.
Which is very sweet.
Yeah.
Very nice. And then later on, Maud is doing stuff around the house, and there's a knock on the door, and she goes to open the door, and it's a woman.
Yes.
Very, very nice looking woman.
Mm-hmm.
And she's asking, where's Amanda? I came to see her. And then like Maud's like, she's resting. She can't see you. And the woman's like, oh no, she's expecting me. And like just pushes her way into the house, forces her way into the house. This unnamed woman at this point goes upstairs, and we hear her and Amanda talking. It's joyous, and Maud is exhibiting these signs of like frustration.
Yes.
So she just eventually gets up and leaves, leaves the house. Like, well, there's no point for me to be here because there's somebody else here. Mm-hmm. And I kind of read that scene like as like Maud is frustrated that someone's coming in to mess up what she's doing.
Yeah, like she's gotten this far in the, and I'm using air quotes here for people listening, but in the progress for Amanda as far as her religious progress. And she feels like things are going to be, she's going to backpedal now because somebody else is here.
Yes.
But not even knowing this person yet,
yes.
Exactly.
Not knowing what her intentions are. She does. So she does leave, and sometime later we see Maud walking her city again, lost in her own world, when a woman approaches her from behind. It's there that we learn that Maud's not actually Maud at all. Her real name is Katie. For the sake of continuity, we're going to continue to call her Maud, since that's even the title of the movie. The woman, Joy, explains that it's been a long time since they've seen each other, and that she was shocked she was still working as a nurse given what happened. She gives Maud her phone number and tells her to call her, and they'll go get a drink sometime. So this like threw me for a loop when she walked up and started calling her Katie.
Yeah.
Like she was like, oh, hey, Katie. I was like, Katie. And then I was kind of like, oh, she's changed her name. Mm-hmm. She's probably trying to adopt a name that she thinks is more religious sounding so she can fit in with that.
And she's trying to separate who she is now from who she was then.
Yep, exactly. Mm-hmm. And you get this sense too when the girl walks up to her that like she's just not like happy about this girl walking up to her. Like she's just very like turned off by it.
Because when she's first, hey Katie, she's like, all right, I'm gonna walk faster.
She's like, no, I don't know you. I don't see you. Like,
when you see somebody from high school in the grocery store, it's one of those things.
Exactly. So so that was like one of the things. Maud does eventually go back to the house after that interaction. And as she's like, going into the house, she hears noises from Amanda's bedroom that signify that something's going on in the bedroom. Something freaky is going on in that bedroom.
Good for them.
Good for them. Mm-hmm. And then later when Maud is in her room, she peeks out and she sees that the woman that had come to the door earlier is leaving with money.
Yes.
So she's kind of like, what are you doing, Amanda? So Maud kind of makes it her mission to get rid of this woman, who we later find out her name is Carol.
Yeah.
And Maud tries to drive a wedge between her and Amanda, but it's really not working. So finally Maud just confronts Carol and is like, you can't be here.
Which I had so much secondhand embarrassment during this scene. I was like, shut up.
Like, please stop. Please stop, man. Like she just pulls her into the kitchen and is like, you can't be here. And in a lot of ways, it's like, I understand, like, from the standpoint of, like, the story, obviously Maud is mostly angry because she's trying to, like, save Amanda's soul. That's what she's concerned about. But it really did give off, like, jealous crush vibes. Like those girls are like, I'm sorry, you can't talk to him anymore?
Yeah.
Like, why? What do you mean I can't talk to him? Who are you? You just can't. He's mine. Like,
I'm his girlfriend.
It just like gave off that kind of vibe. Yeah. Like it was so messy. Of course, Carol obviously defaults to what we all would default to, which is you're extremely homophobic and like get out. And then she's like, I don't care. I really don't care. But like deep down, you can tell she does because she's probably like, you're not going to go to heaven if you behave like this, man. So she's trying her hardest. She tells Carol to not come around anymore. And Carol's just kind of like, all right, I won't then. I'm just going to not come around then. I'll just leave, you know? So Carol leaves, and then Maud gets to planning Amanda's birthday party.
Mm-hmm.
Which, what a birthday party it was.
Oh, gosh. Yeah. I was like, can we go back to the other scene that I felt embarrassment in?
It gets so much worse.
It gets so much
The
worse.
real horror of this movie is how much embarrassment you'll feel.
Yeah, you just like, Maud, like, honey, don't speak.
Like, stop.
Don't speak sometimes. Or, I mean, in the case of the birthday party, it wasn't her. She didn't speak first, but
no, she didn't. And like the thing, so at the birthday party, it's of course all of Amanda's friends, and they're all these like dancers, and they're all these like, you know, artsy people. So, you know, they're all drinking, they're all, you know, smoking, doing their thing, and then Carol walks in, and Maud is like, I thought I told this bitch to stop coming around.
What is she doing in here?
Who is this lady, and why is she here with her short hair and her dress? Like, get out.
Why is she rolling up to Amanda's house right now? I told her she can't be here.
So Maud had told Carol not to say anything to Amanda, and it's heavily implied that even when Maud scared her off, that Carol did try to break it off with Amanda, and that more than likely Carol ended up having to tell Amanda that Maud scared her off, because Amanda was very upset for a while, and then all of a sudden she was like laughing and joking and looking at her phone, and it's like,
because we saw the when Amanda had to take the phone call, and she was like,
upset.
oh, you know,
so it's like, okay, you know that Carol probably like snitched on Maud.
Yeah.
And then you find out later in the party that Carol most certainly did snitch on Maud, because Amanda starts to go off on Maud.
Amanda started running her mouth.
She starts to insult her religion. She says the thing that we're all thinking about the way Maud worships. She implies that Maud is homophobic, even though Maud keeps saying she's not, that she's just more concerned about her soul. She doesn't really care. She says, like, it's not, you know, about her, whether she's a woman or a man. It's just she doesn't want Amanda to stray from the path.
Which I kind of believe, only because she had the same kind of hatred towards the man that came in to visit Amanda earlier.
Absolutely. Yeah. I don't think it had anything to do with her being a woman. I think that was genuine. I think her thing was saving Amanda and getting Amanda away from anybody who could lead her down the path of like drinking, smoking, partying, things like that she was doing, since she was so close to death.
She was like that friend that wants to just be your friend and your friend alone, and doesn't want you to have any other friends. You know?
Exactly.
It's that toxic kind of relationship. It happens in romantic relationships as well.
And I think it's also too, is like the people that Amanda was friends with, like, granted, they probably were good people. But from the standpoint of you being somebody who's extremely Catholic, like devoutly Catholic, you're looking at these people and they're living these lives of like sin, essentially.
Yeah.
And you're saying like, this woman is about to die and like her mortal soul is up for grabs. Yeah. So if I let these people walk in the house with their drinking and their drugs and their, you know, sex and everything like that, she's not going to go to heaven. She's not going to get to be with our Father. So I don't care what you guys do. If this was any other time, if she was just a woman on the street living her life, I'd be like, okay, go ahead, be gay. I don't care. But now that we're here at death's door,
end of the line,
I've got to stop you from doing this at this point. And so Amanda doesn't like that. She doesn't like any of that. She starts to essentially say that she didn't buy anything that Maud was believing in. And the rest of the party starts to tease Maud by putting like a cloth over her head and essentially like calling her Saint Maud and like, you know, laughing at her. And Amanda finally makes like a really, really gross statement about her beliefs, and Maud just slaps her in the face.
Which at that point I was like, okay. A bit warranted here.
Yeah,
you
know? It was warranted.
Yeah.
I wasn't a fan of Amanda personally, but you know, but I also wasn't really a fan of Maud either. No. So it's just kind of like, this is a conflicting movie.
This was one of those movies where you didn't really have that character that you really liked, or that you were, you know,
it's like I felt bad for Maud, but I was also like, Maud, you need to take it down like 10,000 notches.
And the same thing, you feel bad for Amanda, but when she's running her mouth at the party, it's like, you got to take it down.
Like, you got slapped. That's what happens.
Yeah.
That's what happens. You got mollywopped. There you go. But of course, Maud loses her job after that, because you can't slap the patient that you were hired.
You can't?
No.
What?
No, you can't do it, unfortunately.
Blasphemy.
You can't do it. So unfortunately, Maud loses her job, which is a really big trigger for her.
Yeah.
So she's starting to turn her back on God, and we see her indulging in destructive behaviors. This whole part was like my favorite part of the movie. She heads to a local pub and hooks up with a man in the hallway. She awkwardly laughs along with a group of people who just ignore her because why wouldn't you? She makes a desperate call to Joy, who declines her offer to hang out. She sees her and others' beers turn into tornadoes, and then she crashes into a random man, knocking over his drink. Then she ends the night hooking up with him. It's here we finally get to see what happened to Maud that drove her down this road. As she's in the middle of hooking up with this guy, she has a violent flashback of her giving a patient CPR and accidentally cracking their ribs, causing their untimely death. It's clear this moment traumatized Maud enough to drive her to Catholicism.
Yeah, this I was trying the whole movie to figure out what happened.
Yeah, same.
Like why she lost her job. And so when I saw the scene, I'm like, oh.
Yeah, and it was well done, too, because they just did it in flashes.
Yeah.
So you didn't really get to see, like, too much craziness.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you truly saw it through her eyes in that moment.
Yeah, in that moment. And, of course, after that happens, like, she gets up off the guy, she's freaking out. And then he's a jerk and just continues.
Yeah, I don't like that.
Which you could see that she just goes completely numb at that moment.
Yeah.
Then after they're finished, he starts to inform her that he knows who she is, like who she was, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
She hooked up with one of his friends, and oh yeah, you were a wild girl, you were a party girl, and this is really getting to Maud at this point. Now, mind you, she is drunk. She just lost her job.
Exactly.
She's, I loved this whole scene because it was really just a pure downward spiral. It's like everything
she's
she does.
At rock bottom.
Like she's in the bar. She starts ordering beers. She makes eye contact with a guy, goes to the hallway, hooks up with the guy.
Yeah.
She's sitting there looking at the groups of friends. They're all laughing. She just starts laughing with them. And it's really awkward and uncomfortable, but also very sad.
Yes.
Then she goes to the bathroom. She tries to call Joy. She's like, come on, come out. And then she starts to tell her like, oh, I always knew you never liked me. That's why I was surprised you even wanted to talk to me. And then apparently that offends Joy enough that Joy is just like, I'm not coming.
Yeah. Which is like, Joy, this isn't about you.
Like, exactly. It's like, I'm not coming. And it's like, okay. And then, so, then she like is sitting there drinking still. And then she sees the beers turning into tornadoes. And, she's like seeing it as like, oh, it's a sign from God. Like God is like saying something to me. And then stupid guy she meets, we're back up to where we're at.
Exactly.
So after she leaves there, she gets home and she's just basically having a complete and utter breakdown at this point. She's pacing in her apartment. She's drunk. She's panicking. Like she's hyperventilating. She's begging for signs. She's begging for this. Then she just vomits everywhere.
Yeah, which I thought of you in that moment. I was
like,
wow.
I knew it was coming because she was drunk. So
yeah,
I knew it was coming. So I just was like, I'm not gonna look at the screen until I hear it happen. And then it happened. And I was like, all right, cool. It's done. We're good. Then there's fireworks going off. It was a very intense, like, it was aside from just like the vomiting thing, it was a nauseating scene. Like just the direction. It was like the camera's spinning, she pukes, there's fireworks going off, there's all this intensity, she's gagging, she's coughing, she's trying to like get herself up, and then she just levitates off the ground. And it's like
really cool.
This moment, and everything just gets quiet. And it's like this moment of peace, and she's just floating. And it's like, wow, this woman's psyche is damaged.
Yeah.
Like it's damaged.
I liked it because like up until this moment, this movie felt a bit like a slice of life is probably the wrong word to use because that's not like, obviously that's not what it is. It's a drama, but like you don't see much supernatural stuff happening until the moment she's levitating. And so for me in that moment, I'm now having this like, is this really happening in the scene or is this what she's just seeing in this vision she's having, which either way, it's a religious experience for her because it's her having a revelation.
Okay. I was like, I wrote it in the script. Her revelation in her apartment.
Wow. Thank you. But so now that has me sitting there like wondering back and forth, like what is going on here? What is this? And then ultimately me coming for me, I was just like, this is her reality. No matter what it is, this is her reality.
Her reality. Yep. So after that, she still kind of has an obsession with Amanda.
Yes.
So she's Googling Amanda. She's looking at videos and pictures of her and just kind of talking to God again, like saying, like, I'm really sorry I failed you because I didn't bring this person to you. And she's like, I don't know what else to do. She goes to the park and like somehow she meets Amanda's new nurse.
Yeah.
And is just like sitting in the park having a conversation with her.
It's because she remembers seeing the nurse bring Amanda there before, and so she knows that they go to that spot. And so she like made a little plan. I don't know. This was all given you from Netflix. At this point. I was like, she was gone. She needs to put the little Joe hat on.
Yep, she's like hiding in the bushes, like
yeah. But yeah, she meets up with the nurse, like you were saying.
She meets up with the nurse and like asks her some questions. How's everything going? And then it turns out the nurse and her are doing really well. They're having a great time together. And she's like, sometimes it's rough, but we're like besties now. We love each other. So Maud is like mad because she's like, there's no way for me to get back in and save this woman's soul. Mm-hmm. Then we have what's probably the worst part of the whole movie. So I actually knew about this part before I saw the movie because I had seen people talk about it before as like the most cringy part of the whole movie, but it was hard to watch.
Yeah, I didn't see this coming.
So there's a thing that they do in the Bible, which is called the spugna. If you're religious, you might know this. So what they do is they put nails through the right foot is a sign of the mortification of the flesh, which is a sign of giving your flesh up to God.
Okay.
So Maud does that. She takes a picture. She pokes nails through it. A picture of, I think, Jesus or something, or I might be Mary Magdalene because she said that was her saint.
Yeah.
Her saint. She pokes nails through it, and then she sticks it in her Converse. Mm-hmm. Puts her foot in there, and then you can see her walking through the city, and she's just in pain, but she's holding it together because she's like, this is me proving that I am.
Yeah.
I am, with God. I am with him. Mm-hmm. And she's just walking and she's wincing, but she's like, keeps deep breathing.
Keeps moving through it.
She just keeps moving through the pain. I was like, wow. When I saw this scene, I was like, wow. And it's not too gory. Like, it's not something that when you see it, it's like violent, but it's just, you see her putting her foot in the shoe and you're just like,
Yeah, think about every step. I was okay after her foot was like in the shoe and she was walking around. I'm like, okay, I can. I can pretend that she's got like a sprained ankle right now.
Yeah, it's like, I'm just going to pretend it's something, anything but what's happening with these.
What's actually going on.
Nails through the foot. That's pretty heavy metal. So
it is.
Rock on, Maud.
Honestly, though, Maud, like.
That's pretty heavy metal.
You're hardcore.
So, yeah. So then, after that, she's laying in bed and then she gets up, she goes over to her wall and she starts talking to her wall. And to our surprise, the wall talks back to her.
Yes.
And it is God speaking Welsh.
Yeah.
Which was very, very nice.
It was cool.
Like, wow,
it was a cool
God is speaking Welsh. I mean, like, she could speak English, but he just chose to speak to her in her mother tongue.
Yeah.
Which I thought that was a cool touch. So she's having a conversation with God, asking, like, what should she do? And he's basically telling her, like, you've known this whole time, like, what you have to do.
Yeah.
And so she's like, all right.
It's like, well, I don't need to be persuaded any further then.
He told me, so
which again, I was like, no matter what, this is her reality, but you do wonder back and forth just because she's just had this huge moment where she's hit rock bottom.
Yeah.
And so you're not entirely too sure.
And now she's going back up.
Oh yeah.
Maud decides to listen to God and begins formulating her master plan. She creates holy water in her sink, which I thought had to be blessed by a priest, but I guess Maud is holy enough to do that.
Pop off.
But as she's preparing, Joy interrupts to come and see how she's doing. Clearly, Joy senses that something is not right, but Maud is silent and doesn't let on to what she's planning to do. Maud kisses Joy's cheek and tells her that God blesses her before sending her off for the rest of the day. Maud has work to do. She can't be social.
She doesn't have the time to, talk about the weather or anything.
Exactly. So Maud gets like a robe and stuff like that. She's getting all this stuff prepared. Yeah. You see her filling like jugs with a jug with something. They don't reveal what it is yet. She's got the holy water. She's got the robes, and she decides, I'm going to pay a visit to Amanda because I'm going to make sure I save her soul before she passes. Mm-hmm. So Maud goes into the room. Amanda's laying in bed. She looks worse for the wear, probably the worst she's looked throughout the entire movie. Yeah. Like, she's really close to the end.
Yeah.
So Maud takes the holy water and draws the sign of the cross on her forehead.
But she rejects it.
Mm-hmm. She starts to go, oh God, stop. Like, please.
Yeah, wincing.
Amanda keeps telling her repeatedly that, she never felt anything when they were praying. She doesn't believe. There's no God. There's nothing there. And you see Maud's faith for a moment really start to falter.
Yes.
She kind of looks shocked and she's like, huh? Excuse me? Excuse? Then Amanda starts to laugh.
Mm-hmm.
And her voice starts to get deeper. And that's when it's revealed that Amanda is a demon. Or
Mm-hmm.
is she?
Yes.
Because I don't think she is, personally. I think that Maud hallucinated all of that.
Again, that was one of those where, like, I don't know, when these things happened initially,
Mm-hmm.
like these moments in the scenes, like her levitating or her speaking to God, I'm sitting there, I'm like, whoa, you know, like believing it. And then I have that moment afterwards where I'm like, or is it? You know, like,
or
is this real? But you know, having to accept that it's her reality no matter what.
It's her reality. It's her reality no matter what. But like, if you're looking at it from an objective point of view, I personally don't think that really happens.
Especially with how the scene is framed after what happens next.
We'll discuss it more in the end. But so of course this sets off a action sequence of Amanda and Maud fighting a little bit, and Maud gets the better of Amanda and ends up stabbing her to death. And after this moment, Maud goes and cleans herself up because she's covered in blood, and we get a shot where Maud is standing up, and there is these very pretty glittery, like almost like a hallucination, like wispy wings coming out. It's
very ethereal. It's really pretty. And actually what I meant earlier when I said what happens next is just the scene where you see Amanda's dead body. It's like, I almost feel like that's when you shift back to the reality of it.
That's true.
She came in and she just murdered this woman.
That's true. That's true.
But no, she goes ahead, she cleans up, she has the very ethereal wings. It's very pretty. It is
actually a really beautiful shot. It's a beautiful shot. Even the ending, which we're about to get to, I thought was one of the most beautiful shots of like a horror movie I've ever seen.
Absolutely.
So the movie ends with Maud in her saint-like robes heading down to the local beach, but she's not there to get some sun or surf the waves, especially because it's cloudy and it's Wales. She stands in the middle of the beach and douses herself in acetone. Onlookers watch in horror, many expressing concern, but no one rushes to stop her. She pulls out a lighter and utters her final words, "Glory to God," in Welsh, before she flicks the lighter on. Her wings come back, and a bright light emitting from her as she stands, posed with arms outstretched, finally reaching her saint status. The onlookers drop to their knees in wonder. It's a beautiful moment to end a tumultuous movie. Just kidding. The last shot of the movie is Maud burning to death.
It was so cool how they
loved that.
I
loved that. And it's such a split-second scene. It actually is like, it's the only jump scare in the entire movie, because it's like, it's playing this beautiful music, everyone's on their knees, and she's standing there, and then it just cuts to her
screaming,
like in flames, and she's like, ah!
Her face is melting.
Oh, like, it's like I was like, that's how you do a jump scare. That was a good jump scare. Like, that was the only time in the entire movie I jumped out of my skin. I was like, holy crap.
Yep. And that's what leaves me questioning at the end of this movie, like, you know, was she actually experiencing these things, or was it in her head? Because the fact that they went ahead and they switched it like that in the movie, at the very end there, it's like they're even asking, like, well, was it like that, or was it really?
Was it really in her head? So my personal theory with this movie, and it's kind of backed up with a lot of people's complaints with this movie, after she accidentally killed a person on the operating table.
There you go.
On the operating table, I feel like she probably hit rock bottom then. She probably was struggling immensely with that guilt, as many people would in that situation. You just essentially killed somebody, even if it was unintentional. She lost her job, she lost everything she cared about, and she probably ended up stumbling into a church or meeting somebody who was religious, and they took her down that path. I feel like she's severely mentally ill, and that because she's so isolated, she lives alone, she has no friends, she does it's never clear if she has a family around her. She has no one around her. She's so isolated. Everything we see through her lens is not real. That's my whole thing. Everything we see is not real, except for the things we see doing to herself, like burning herself alive, the spugna, things like that. The part in her apartment where she has the revelation, I'm not saying she didn't have that revelation, but I don't think she was levitating off the ground. I think she was pent up because of everything that happened, losing her job, going back to these like quote unquote sinful ways, doing all this stuff that was just out there wild, essentially getting assaulted. Getting assaulted.
Like, that's a major thing to happen to somebody in a short span of time.
Exactly. And then going home and just trying to figure out, like, what are you trying to tell me, God? What are you trying to tell me? And then this whole chaotic scene just erupts with her getting sick, with the fireworks going off, with the chaos in the apartment, everything spinning. It's like that chaos of like, I hit rock bottom. And then the moment of peace was probably the moment when she finally just like in herself felt like she felt God.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, okay, he's still here. He didn't leave me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sad. It was like, I finished watching this movie and I felt very sad for Maud. Because I'm like, if she had people in her corner that were genuinely in her corner, not saying she can't be religious, not saying she can't believe what she believes, because absolutely you can. If that gives her peace, that's great. But if she had people in her corner, they could see that she was still struggling with this loss that she had created.
She needed a community.
Yeah.
Like, and her community could have been a church.
Yeah, her community could have been a church. Her community
but she needed a community in general.
They could have helped her. They could have, but she needed somebody to keep her grounded. Yeah. And like, if she had, like, let's say a priest she could go to, she could go to him about Amanda and be like, I've tried to save this woman's soul and I couldn't. And he could tell her what most priests tell you is like, sometimes you just can't, and you have to let that go.
Yeah.
And you have to move forward, instead of her becoming so obsessed to the point that she went to this woman's house and essentially murdered her because she thought she was a demon. She basically, in her mind, she's like, if you reject God, then you're evil. Mm-hmm. So you must be killed. And that's what I thought. Because I'm like, I think everything that happened up until the moment where Amanda transformed, quote unquote, into a demon, I think all of that was real. I think Amanda telling her she didn't feel anything was real. I think Amanda telling her that she, like, that God wasn't real was real. I feel like all of that was real. And that in Maud's mind, she created the demon to justify killing her.
Mm-hmm.
To justify. Because I don't think she went there with the intention to kill her. I think she was hoping she would see her as a saint.
Mm-hmm.
And be like, okay, she's back to save me. Like, thank you. And then, like, when that didn't happen, when Amanda was like, I don't believe in any of that stuff. I faked it. I lied. I don't believe it. Nobody's here to save us. We're on our own. Then she was like, all right, stab.
Mm-hmm. I guess I feel like the part where Amanda's saying that she didn't feel anything, I feel like that was a part of the hallucination, or if we're looking at it from the religious standpoint, that's the demon talking. There's always that like term of like the devil's always there whispering in your ear, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that was a part of it. And maybe we didn't get to see what actually their actual conversation was in that moment. I feel like Maud was just so out of it.
Yeah.
Where maybe this woman couldn't even speak. Maybe she was just laying there sick.
Yeah.
And Maud hallucinating, and all of this happened.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure where that switch is made, where it's now in the demon talking, and it's Amanda talking. And I think that's what's really great about this movie. I mean, the movie's fantastic because it's such an artistic film, and that you can have it. It opens up so much dialogue and so much opportunity to discuss. And in regards to this scene, it's hard to tell. Like, it's easier to tell in earlier scenes, but now
the further it gets into the movie and the further Maud's mental health deteriorates, the harder it is to tell what's real and what's not.
We're viewing everything through Maud's eyes still, and so the lines are blurring more for her. As the lines are blurring more for her, it's blurring more for us, the audience. Yeah, which I really like.
Yeah, I mean, I had heard this movie was really good. I've wanted to watch it for a long time, and I'm glad that I did. I love A24 horror movies for the most part. They're always something that's going to get you thinking. They're always something that's going to get you talking afterwards. And I know there's a lot of people that are like, oh, I don't like their movies because there's not enough going on. And I'm like, no, there's plenty going on. There's not a lot of action, and it requires you to pay attention, which I know for some horror fans, they just want the blood, guts, and gore. They just want everything to be splattered around. And that's great. That's fine. That's wonderful.
I'm raising my hand.
I know. I'm like, I enjoyed that too. But I've always been somebody, because I'm not scared by that stuff. It's just more like, oh yeah, it's cool. It's cool. Yeah. Like whatever. Like I like stuff like this that really makes me sit back and think. Like when I watched this movie, I was reminded of like the first time that I watched Midsommar, and I sat there for like a long time after I watched it. And I was like, this was heavy. Like, this was a heavy movie. And I know there's people who hate that movie and they're like, oh my God, it was so bad. I'm like, no, it was actually a really good movie. It just required you to sit and pay attention. And y'all didn't like that. Y'all didn't like to have to sit and pay attention. I'm not saying it was the greatest movie ever made. Yeah, I was like, I'm not saying it's the greatest movie ever made. But when you actually, like, have to engage your brain and look at the trauma, like the opening scene of Midsommar, like, made my blood my blood go cold. Like, her losing her entire family in one fell swoop. Like, come on, like that was intense. And it's like, you can't do that in like a slasher movie. Slasher movies are great. They have their time, they have their place, they have their audience, and I like watching them. But like, I was like, I love this movie. I loved Saint Maud. Like, I was like, this is my type of movie, because I wasn't scared when I watched it. I was definitely sad, but then I was also kind of like, this is kind of scary, because in a way, this could happen in that sense. Like, people do get like this. People do reach those points where they, they hit rock bottom, and however they decide to enact violence, whether it's on themselves or somebody else, like, they do it, and it's sad, and it was sad. It was scary. It's a really intense movie.
It is. It's a really intense movie. You say that you thought of Midsommar when you watched it. For me, I was thinking of Pan's Labyrinth
Labyrinth, yeah.
When I was watching it, just, I guess that's the most artsy movie that I really love.
I guess I think of Pan's Labyrinth because I don't find I like the fantasy. It's like a fantasy movie to me, even though it is kind of scary at parts. But like,
I don't know. I've always viewed that one as a very artistic film.
It is a very artistic film. Yeah, it is. It's one of my favorite movies ever, Pan's Labyrinth. So I think it's it's like a fantasy movie. But yeah, I can see where you're like, where it's like the lines between what's real and what's not.
But also just, I can't think of any movies right now, but just like some more contemporary drama movies, mainly indie films. Like, it made me think of a lot of those. It's just that it did have a touch of the horror aspect when we introduce a demon into it. Yeah. And of course, whether we say we introduced a demon into it or we're introducing the fact that she brutally murdered this woman who's dying of cancer in her bed, like, one way or another, this is giving horror.
And then she like ended her own life in front of a crowd of people
at the beach.
And like, and that scene, like I said, it was a jump scare at the end, because it was like, you're just looking at this beautiful scene, and then it's just like cuts to her screaming. And like, when we say it's a split second, it is a split second. It's not, it doesn't linger on that scene at all, but it's enough that it's loud and it jolts you out of your skin, and then it just cuts to credits, and you're like,
it was maybe like 2 or 3 frames altogether. Like, it was so fast. It was so quick. I'd say 2 frames.
Yeah, it was so quick.
But no, it's really good. Any artists out there who can make like a lithograph or whatever, or like a holographic, where like you look at it from one angle and it's the ethereal side, and then the other angle and it's her burning, I would buy that.
Yeah, I'm sure that somewhere.
Right. Someone had to make that.
Someone had to do that. So what would you rate this movie in the skull ratings?
I would give this one 3.5 skulls out of 5.
Okay.
Yeah, I would sit it there. It surprised me. It delighted me in the fact that I found it to be so interesting. I didn't watch any trailers. I didn't, look into anything about it before watching it. I'd like to do that more when it comes to watching horror movies, because as you know, they usually show the whole movie in the trailer. Yeah. I had told some friends about it, and they're like, this movie looks weird. Oh no. And I was like, okay. So I was getting nervous, like up to the point when I was going to watch it, but then I was just so pleasantly surprised. And it's definitely a rewatch for me. It's definitely something I put in my rotation, and I don't know, for me, it's something that it's really making me think, but more so, it's really making me think internally about my own self and my own point in my healing journey. That scene where she hits rock bottom, it hit a little too close to home for me personally, without getting into too much. Yeah. I've been there.
Yeah, I feel that.
I've had that night.
Yep, I've been there too. I have had that night as well. And I didn't levitate after, though.
I did not levitate either.
Sad.
So I have some complaints about my
rock bottom.
About my rock bottom, but just like
floating in the air,
and nothing specific in the scene, but just like the overall, the feeling of chaos, and just so much chaos. I'm sick. Now I'm scared. Now, like that scene was done so well, and there's just so many points where the cinematography in this movie is A1.
Oh,
and I
it's
really,
amazing.
really like it.
It's amazing. Yeah. That's good.
And what would your skull rating be?
I would have to rate it a 4 out of 5 skulls.
Okay.
I genuinely love this movie. Like I know I'm gonna piss off a lot of horror fans. I'm sitting here with slashers on my shirt. I love cerebral horror movies. I came out of this movie, even though The Babadook was more horror based, but I came out of this movie the same way I came out of watching The Babadook. Because when I was watching it, you know, it's like when I used to see the trailers and stuff for it, I was like, oh yeah, this is just like a movie about like a monster that's like stalking a family. And then as you're watching it, you're like, it's an allegory for grief and depression. Like that's what it is. And it was like, it hit me on the head and it made me feel like really like, it made me really feel for the main character and even her son. I know everybody hates that kid, but you know what? He's probably on the spectrum. So I give him the benefit of the doubt. But like, I came away from this movie feeling the same way, where it was like, wow, I'm kind of sad. Like that, like I would say this scared me less than The Babadook. The Babadook did scare me, but it's also because I was just moved into a new house when I watched it the first time. And I was not used to the house. And I'm like, let's watch The Babadook. No, bad idea. Now I'm just seeing him crawling on my ceiling.
Oh, cute.
Yeah, and now he's slays, so it's okay.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, word.
I was like, yeah. But no, this movie didn't scare me as much, but the reason I'm giving it like 4 out of 5 skulls is, first of all, it's immaculately written, beautifully shot, great acting. Like Morford Clark, like she ate that. I don't know if I could watch. I haven't watched Rings of Power. I don't know if I can watch Rings of Power now because I'm just gonna be like Maud, chill, Maud, chill, Maud, chill. Like you know. But like she killed that role. Like she was so good in it. It had its moments where it made me uneasy. Not scared necessarily, but uneasy. A lot of secondhand embarrassment, which is hard for horror movies to get me to do. I just kept being like, girl, what is he doing? I agree with that scene of the breakdown, just from the very beginning, from the bar all the way to like her levitating, like the chaos, and you could feel it amping up as it went on. That's why I said I knew she was going to get sick, because I'm like, there's just so like there's so much happening. It was making me nauseous. Just as like this scene was amping up, like from the moment she was in the bar all the way like through till she got sick. I'm like, there's no way she's not going to throw up, because I feel like I'm going to throw up just watching this, because the music, the way it's shot, it's just everything you felt like you're like, my stomach does not feel good right now. I feel like I'm on edge now.
The music is fantastic.
Yeah, the music is fantastic.
So well, especially in that scene.
Especially it is a like such a well done movie. And then like the ending of that movie, I actually knew how the movie ended before I saw it, because I had seen people talk about it on YouTube, but I never actually saw the scene. And that still caught me off guard. So that's kudos awesome to that one, because I was like, oh yeah, I know she's going to burn herself alive. But they didn't really describe. They just said what they said was like kind of what we said, like in a way where it's like, you see her, like she, like everyone's watching her as she's glowing, and then it cuts to a scene of her being burnt alive. So I didn't know how they did it. I didn't know, like, but no, it was like when they said they cut, that meant they cut to it. Like it was a hard cut. You don't even like. It's like I think it's even in the middle of the music. Like it just like cuts out, and then she's just screaming like bloody murder and on fire, and her face is melting, and it's like, wow.
It's like a little callback to the first Friday the 13th movie, where everything's like ethereal. The sun's coming up at the end of the movie.
Yeah, and then he jumps out and grabs
comes
her.
out the water, and you're like, oh, never mind.
Or even Carrie, where she's walking through the graveyard and she puts the flowers on, and the hand comes out and grabs her. You know, which is it is a kind of a trope in a lot of horror movies and stuff like that. But this one
was done for one artistically well. But it just, I don't know, it's like elevated.
Yeah,
you know, it's like having in those chef shows where they they make a burger, but it's an elevated burger.
Yes, it's an elevated burger.
It's just delightful.
Yes. No, so yeah, I definitely loved. I'm gonna try watching it again. After I watched it that first time, I was like, I don't know if I can sit through that again, because that was heavy. And it was just a heavy movie. It was one of those movies that, like, you know, first of all, I had to applaud them, even though yes, there was a demon in the movie. I still am questionable about whether it was a real demon. I'm happy it wasn't a demonic possession movie, and it didn't turn out that there was exorcisms and people crawling on the ceiling. That wasn't the focus of it. Like, yes, there was a demon at the end, but it was like, is it really a demon, or is she just, you know, imagining this?
Yeah.
So I'm kind of glad that it didn't go that route, because like I said, so many demonic horror movies, like, you know, these Catholic movies, Christian movies, and they go down that road, and you're like, I've seen it all before. I've seen that person like barfing on the wall and spinning around on the floor on their head, or like the kid in The Conjuring 3 that makes himself into a pretzel, basically.
Just say you don't like breakdancing.
I like breakdancing if it's not done with a demon inside of them. If it's just a horror movie about people breakdancing, okay. Okay, I'll take it. But yeah, so let us know your thoughts on this one. Yeah, this is an interesting one. So let us know what you think about it. And yeah.
And
yeah, I think this is a good one. So thank you guys so much again for listening to today's episode.
If you like what you hear and are afraid to miss an episode, you can catch us every Wednesday at noon over on Spotify, Google Podcasts, or wherever you choose to listen.
Catch up with us over on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Dial H for Horror Podcast, and feel free to check out our Patreon for exclusive content under the same name. Once again, I've been Shay.
And I've been Gina.
Be safe out there, and we'll see you all in the next episode.
Stay spooky.